Rain sliced through the night like shattered glass, drumming against the cracked windows of the abandoned house. Shadows pooled in the corners, dark and thick, swallowing everything they touched. Footsteps echoed, too slow, too deliberate for anyone sane to be out here. IJ pressed his back against the cold, damp wall, every nerve screaming. The smell of mildew mixed with something sharper, metallic, almost like blood, but it wasn't. The corridor stretched endlessly before him, walls peeling, floorboards groaning with each hesitant step. A faint whisper curled through the air, a voice that shouldn't exist, saying nothing yet making him shiver. "You shouldn't be here." He froze as a metallic scraping dragged along the floor behind the door at the end of the hall. The sound stopped, replaced by silence so thick it pressed into his ears. The hair on the back of his neck bristled and his stomach twisted. He wanted to run, but every instinct screamed that movement might provoke it. Then, from the darkness, a scream. Not a full scream, just a broken, choking sound that ended abruptly, leaving the air heavy, suffocating still. IJ's breath caught in his throat. His hands shook as he reached for the doorknob, eyes wide, heart hammering. Inside, he knew something waited, something that had been waiting far longer than him, and in that frozen heartbeat, the whispers grew louder, echoing inside his skull. "You came for a story. Now the story comes for you." IJ's hands still trembled as he stepped out of the soaked corridor, blinking into the dim glow of the streetlights outside. The rain had slowed, but the air was thick with the smell of wet earth and something else he couldn't place. Something faint, rotting, almost metallic. His coat clung to him, heavy with water, and the chill gnawed at his bones. He tried to tell himself it was just nerves, the adrenaline from exploring a derelict house no one dared enter. But deep down, he knew better. The house had a story, not the usual kind that gets whispered around campfires. This was the kind that left police officers uneasy, journalists frustrated, and locals unwilling even to speak its name. Ajay had spent weeks digging into the records, piecing together fragments of the true case that had inspired a horror movie decades later. Murders, disappearances, unexplained sightings, all dismissed as folklore by some, ignored by others. But the deeper he dug, the more he realized the horror hadn't ended. It had only waited. He pulled his notebook from his bag, flipping through pages filled with scribbles, photographs, and police reports. Most of it was mundane, the sort of details that make a story credible. Timelines, witness statements, neighborhood maps. But here and there he'd scrawled warnings, lines that made him pause and feel the weight of something watching. "Do not enter after dark," one note read. "They are still here." The streets were empty, silent except for the drip of water from broken gutters. His phone buzzed, a message from his editor. "Any leads? Make it compelling. This isn't a ghost story. It's the truth." AJ typed back quickly, fingers hovering over the screen before he could hit send. Compelling. That was the word. But what he had discovered wasn't just compelling. It was dangerous. As he walked past the corner shop, the lights flickered. For a moment, Ajay thought he saw a figure inside, slouched, unmoving, staring at him. He stopped, blinked, and it was gone. Probably a trick of the shadows. He told himself that. The rational explanation. But something in his gut twisted. He arrived at the small inn where he'd rented a room. The owner, an old man with wary eyes, barely looked up when Ajay checked in. "Evening," Ajay said. "Evening," the man replied, voice low. He paused, then muttered almost under his breath, "You shouldn't be poking around that place. People vanish, and they don't always come back." AJ forced a polite smile. "I'm just reporting research," the man shook his head. "Research? Sometimes curiosity is the deadliest mistake you can make." The words hung in the air long after AJ had closed the door to his room. He unpacked slowly, meticulously. Camera, notebook, voice recorder, flashlight. Everything ready for the next day's investigation. But as he set down the last item, he noticed something odd. A photograph, half buried under a pile of brochures about the town, slid out. He picked it up. It was an old family photo, several children smiling, frozen in time. But one face at the back, almost hidden in shadow, didn't belong. Or at least it shouldn't have been there. The eyes, dark and unreadable, seemed to follow him. He dropped the photo onto the bed, heart thudding, trying to rationalize it. The night deepened. Rain pattered gently against the window. Ajay sat by the small desk, notebook open, revisiting the case files. Names, dates, locations, everything was interconnected, but some pieces didn't make sense. People disappearing in plain sight, doors left unlocked, whispers heard at night, and always the same recurring detail. Something or someone was always present, unseen, unrecorded. A knock at the door startled him. AJ froze. "Who is it?" he called, voice steadier than he felt. No answer, only silence. He approached slowly, hand on the doorknob. The hallway outside was empty. Just an old building, silent and creaking in the rain. And yet he felt it. That same presence from the house, watching, waiting, patient. He closed the door and leaned against it, chest heaving. He had come here seeking answers, chasing the story that inspired fear on the silver screen. But something about tonight whispered a warning, one he couldn't ignore. The story wasn't over. It wasn't just fiction. It was alive. And now, for the first time, Ajay realized he was no longer merely an observer. He was part of it. The next morning, Ajay awoke to the persistent drizzle tapping against the window. The inn was quiet, the world outside muted and gray. He sipped his coffee slowly, staring at the notebook sprawled across the table. Each page carried fragments of the case, names, dates, interviews. But something gnawed at him, a sense that the details weren't just facts, they were warnings. He began at the local library, the musty air thick with dust and the smell of old paper. The librarian, a woman with a tight bun and nervous eyes, watched him as he leafed through microfilm of old newspapers. Stories of disappearances stretched back decades, each report eerily similar. Young children vanished, adults gone without trace, only doors left unlocked, windows open, and faint whispers heard in the night. Most of these cases, they say it's a curse, the librarian whispered as she shelved a pile of records. Or bad blood. Some families are marked. AJ frowned. Marked how? She shook her head, voice low. You wouldn't understand. Not unless you've seen it. People disappear, homes go quiet, and then someone new moves in. It starts again. He nodded politely, though his heart thumped. He was beginning to understand. This wasn't just urban legend. It was a cycle, systematic, relentless, and invisible. Walking through the town afterward, IJ noticed the subtle oddities that locals clearly ignored, but he couldn't. Windows shuttered at odd angles, doors left slightly ajar, fences that leaned like they'd been disturbed repeatedly. Whispers trailed him down narrow alleyways, voices too soft to make out, yet persistent. He caught himself glancing over his shoulder at empty streets, shadows that seemed to move against the flow of light. At a small cafe, he met a woman claiming to have known one of the original families involved in the case. Her eyes were hollow, as if the memory still haunted her. They warned us, she said, voice trembling. All of them. Neighbors, friends. Everyone said we should leave. But we didn't. We couldn't believe it. It seemed impossible. And yet, her gaze flicked to the corner of the room. It came anyway. AJ leaned forward, recorder on the table. What came? Her hands shook. Something. I don't know what to call it. Eyes in the dark. Breaths when no one's there. Things moving. Things you can't see. And when it took them, it wasn't loud. Not like a scream, just absence, silence. The cafe felt colder suddenly. The rain outside intensified, drumming against the windows. Ajay felt the familiar tightness in his chest, the same that had gripped him in the abandoned house. He realized the town itself carried the horror, woven into its streets, its buildings, even the people who avoided looking at him directly. That evening, Ajay returned to the inn, notebooks in hand. He tried to make sense of it all, mapping disappearances, connecting witnesses, building timelines. And then he noticed something, patterns within the patterns, places where the vanished had lived, streets they'd walked, objects they'd touched. Each thread linked to a house, a room, a door that opened for no one. He couldn't ignore it. Something was moving through these patterns, watching, waiting. The night fell heavy and silent. Ajay decided to walk through the streets alone, hoping to feel the town's pulse. That's when the first micro-event struck. A shadow darted across a window, too quick, too fluid. He froze. The figure, if it could even be called that, stopped, facing him from inside the building. For a heartbeat, the shape seemed human, then stretched, twisted, impossible. Ajay's breath caught. He ran, heart pounding, and when he reached a side alley, a door slammed somewhere behind him. Not just a door, every door. Windows rattled. A low whispering began, words indistinct but heavy. You shouldn't be here. You know too much. Over Over the following days, events grew more insistent. Objects moved, notebooks misplaced, camera equipment rearranged. Each subtle, enough to make him doubt himself. Voices in the dark, soft murmurs that seemed to call his name. Fleeting, gone before he could locate the source. Neighbors' reactions. Doors closed quickly when he passed. People avoiding eye contact whispered warnings in empty streets. One night, the inn's hallway stretched unnaturally long, lights flickering, ceiling groaning. Ajay's footsteps echoed, though he was certain no one else was there. Then, a door at the far end creaked open, revealing nothing but shadow, yet he felt eyes on him. He heard a whisper, faint but chilling. "You can't leave." Not now. He began to question his sanity. Dreams bled into reality. Images of the vanished, their eyes hollow, staring from places he'd walked, rooms he'd entered. And always the same sense of inevitability, of something waiting to complete a pattern he didn't yet understand. Ajay visited the old caretaker of one of the houses connected to the original case. The man's small home smelled of mildew and decay, walls lined with photographs and scraps of newsprint. They tried to fight it, the caretaker said, voice gravelly. Families, neighbors, none of it mattered. The pattern is older than this town, older than memory. It feeds on curiosity, fear, life itself. You think you're documenting history, but history is documenting you now. AJ's pulse quickened. He pressed on. His investigation grew obsessive. Maps of disappearances sprawled across his room, lines connecting streets, windows, doors, photographs pinned to the wall, faces staring back at him, some from decades ago, some from last month, each image a warning, a plea, a record of absence. Then came the moment that shattered his rationality. While reviewing old footage from a police investigation, a figure appeared that he had never seen recorded before. Dark, featureless, yet somehow human. In the corner of the frame, it lingered just out of focus. When he paused the video, the figure seemed to move slightly closer. AJ laughed nervously. It's just a trick, just shadows. But deep down he knew this wasn't shadows. This wasn't a trick, and it certainly wasn't something he could leave behind. The pattern was closing in. Every witness, every family, every street led to the same chilling truth. The horror wasn't just a story, it was a presence. And now it had noticed him. He looked out the window of his inn room at the empty street, rain washing over everything. In the reflection of the glass, a shadow moved behind him, one he hadn't seen when he turned around. Not human, yet unmistakably watching. AJ's hands shook as he reached for the camera, notebook clutched tightly. The whisper returned, low and deliberate, echoing in the corners of his mind. You've come for the story. Now the story comes for you. And in that moment he understood. He could investigate all he wanted, dig through every record, speak to every witness, but some truths were never meant to be uncovered. Some horrors were patient, and some patterns were inevitable. The rain returned that night, heavier, thrumming against the inn's roof like a drumbeat counting down. Ajay paced the small room, every surface cluttered with photographs, notebooks, and the scattered remains of his research. The air felt thick, almost solid, pressing against his chest. Shadows clung to the corners, twitching, stretching, refusing to settle. He had prepared for this. He had traced the pattern, mapped the disappearances, and followed every lead. But nothing could have prepared him for the weight of it, the realization that the horror wasn't a story. It was alive, aware, and fully intent on drawing him in. A flicker of movement caught his eye in the reflection of the window. At first he thought it was a trick of the rain. Then he saw it clearly. A figure, tall and thin, its edges indistinct, as if reality itself struggled to hold it together. It didn't move like a human. It glided, sliding closer, soundless. Ajay's breath caught. He backed into the corner, flashlight trembling in his hands. The beam struck the wall, but not the figure. It seemed to shimmer in the gaps between light, moving through shadows like water through cracks in a stone wall. You can't leave, a voice hissed, soft but razor-sharp, echoing in every corner at once. AJ's hands shook violently. He turned to the door, locked. The knob rattled on its own. The lock clicked. He tried to open it, but it wouldn't budge. Panic clawed at his chest. The walls seemed to pulse, expanding and contracting as if the room itself was breathing. Photographs on the wall twisted, faces stretched, mouths opening in silent screams. The air smelled of iron, damp wood, and something else. something fetid, lingering, alive. He remembered the caretaker's words. The pattern feeds on curiosity, fear, life itself. Fear became a physical thing crawling across his skin, wrapping him in ice. Ajay realized he wasn't just afraid. He was part of the pattern. The disappearances, the shadows, the whispers, they weren't random. He had been drawn here, and now the story demanded its conclusion. Another whisper, closer this time. You see them? You see what comes for you? The flashlight dropped. He scrambled to pick it up, but something invisible pressed down on his chest, pinning him. His vision blurred. Images from the missing, faces, rooms, moments of terror flashed in his mind. A little girl reaching for a doorknob. A man staring at a window, frozen in fear. A mother clutching a photograph that no longer existed. Screams erupted suddenly, echoing through the inn, though the hallways were empty. Ajay covered his ears, but the sound penetrated anyway, vibrating in his skull. He turned toward the figure. It had grown, stretched impossibly tall, twisting in ways that defied anatomy. Its face remained indistinct, but its presence radiated malevolence, hunger. Stop. Please, Ajay shouted, voice cracking. I don't want this. I'm leaving. The figure tilted its head. The room seemed to bend toward it. Time warped. Moments stretched and snapped, each second a hammer driving him deeper into terror. His own reflection in the window morphed into one of the vanished. Hollow eyes staring back, expression empty yet accusing. Desperate, Ajay grabbed the camera from the table. Flashing the light at the figure, he hoped the technology could capture it, reveal it, give him control. But the beam bent around the shadow, dissolving into nothing. It advanced, slowly, unstoppably. He ran, smashing into walls, doorways elongating, hallways turning into impossible angles. The inn was no longer the inn. It was a labyrinth, alive, reshaping itself around him. Every escape route vanished, replaced by darkness that seemed to watch, breathe, anticipate his moves. Then came the whispers again. Every voice he'd ever heard during his investigation. Layered and distorted, you shouldn't have come. It waits for you. The pattern is complete. Ajay collapsed against the floor, covering his face. His mind shattered under the weight of reality bending, the horror encroaching, the inevitability of it all. A hand, cold, skeletal, impossible, pressed on his shoulder. He looked up. The figure was there, towering, faceless, yet unmistakably aware of him. It leaned close. You wanted the truth, it whispered. Now you are part of it. Pain, memory, and fear collided. He remembered the families, the children, the vanished. He tried to scream, but sound failed him. Time unraveled, minutes stretched into eternity. His own body felt separate, distant, as if observing the final act of someone else. Then the lights went out completely. Ajay felt himself lifted, drawn toward the figure. He tried to resist, clawing at the floor walls, the very air. The whispers intensified, overlapping into a deafening chorus. You are ours. The story is complete. A flash of movement, his camera still on the table, flickered. Images streamed across its small screen. The vanished looking directly at him. Frozen moments of terror. Faces twisted in silent pleas. Scenes from every corner of the town he'd visited. Each frame was a thread in the pattern, and now he was one too. The figure leaned closer. Ajay's thoughts spiraled. He tried to rationalize, to flee, to fight. But there was no fight left. Logic, memory, identity, everything slipped like water through his fingers. He understood fully for the first time he could not escape. The horror wasn't confined to a house, a room, or a town. It was everywhere, patient, inevitable, and then silence, not peace, not relief. Silence heavy with the sense of something watching, waiting for the next curiosity, the next step. Ajay's body lay still on the floor of the inn room. His eyes were open, wide, staring, but inside him was hollow. He was no longer merely human. He had become a part of the story itself, woven into the pattern, indistinguishable from the shadows he had chased. Outside, rain continued to fall. The inn's windows rattled, a door creaked in the hallway, and a faint whisper drifted through the air. The story continues. And now it will find the next one. The morning after the storm, the inn was silent. Too silent. Rain had ceased, leaving streets slick and empty, a gray haze lingering over the town. Birds did not sing, dogs did not bark. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Ajay's room was empty. The bed was made neat as if he had never stayed there. His notebooks, photographs, and camera lay undisturbed on the desk. except when the innkeeper entered later that morning, he noticed something subtle and impossible. The camera screen displayed a single image of Ajay, lying on the floor with wide, unblinking eyes. The innkeeper frowned. He had never turned the device on. His fingers trembled as he picked it up, but the image did not change. The air in the room felt heavier, oppressive, and though the windows were shut, the faint smell of rain mixed with iron hung inside. Locals spoke in whispers when asked about the inn, casting wary glances around Ajay's abandoned room. Some claimed they saw a shadow in the window at night, small and human-shaped, sometimes towering, moving impossibly. Others insisted the lights flickered on their own, and that quiet murmurs could be heard coming from empty hallways. The police investigation, such as it was, concluded quickly. Ajay had vanished. There was no evidence of struggle, no sign of a break-in. His notebook, meticulously detailed, vanished with him. Only the camera remained, showing him, still, watching, waiting. Months later, the inn sat empty for weeks at a time. New visitors reported discomfort, unexplained chills, the sensation of being observed. Photographs taken by tourists occasionally contained shadows that were not there when the picture was taken. Some claimed to hear whispers in languages they did not know, voices calling names that belonged to no one alive. In the small town, parents warned children not to wander near the abandoned houses. Streets that had once seemed ordinary now carried an undertone of dread. A few elderly residents whispered about the pattern, about the families who had vanished, about the curiosity that drew victims like flies to a trap. Those who had spoken to Ajay before he disappeared, journalists, librarians, cafe owners, described him differently afterward. They said his eyes had a faraway look in them even before he left. They said he had seemed haunted, as if he were seeing something beyond the world of the living, something that had already claimed him. And the town continued. Life went on, superficially normal, but beneath the surface the pattern remained. Silence lingered in corners, shadows stretched unnaturally, and the air carried a faint metallic tang, like the memory of old blood. Late at night, a few who dared to walk the streets alone reported a feeling of being followed. Footsteps matched their own, though no one was there. Doors opened and closed softly behind them. A fleeting whisper brushed their ears. The story continues. The camera that had captured Ajay's last moments eventually found its way into an antique shop in a neighboring town. Curious buyers came and went, and for weeks nothing unusual occurred. Then one evening, a man opened the device and froze. On the screen, Ajay's eyes stared directly at him. He could not blink. He could not look away, and in the reflection of the screen, he thought he saw shadows moving across the walls behind him. The man dropped the camera, heart racing, and ran into the night. The camera lay on the dusty floor, silent. The screen still flickered with Ajay's gaze, watching, waiting. A reminder that some stories do not end. They linger, patient and inevitable. Back in the town, families went to bed as they always did. Children slept in rooms with closed doors and dim nightlights. Parents whispered stories meant to comfort, but the words fell flat. Outside, the wind moved the trees, rustling leaves, but beneath the rustle, something waited, watching, always watching, and somewhere, in the echoes of forgotten houses, in the reflections of old windows, and in the corners of shadows too deep to measure, Ajay remained. Not alive, not fully gone, a part of the story, a thread in the pattern, patient and eternal. Those who sought him or sought the truth were warned indirectly through whispers, strange movements, and fleeting glimpses. Few understood, fewer believed, but the pattern endured, because horror is not loud. It is quiet, persistent, inevitably patient. The town would never forget him, and Ajay would never truly leave. His story, his fate, had joined the countless others who had disappeared before him. And for those who dared curiosity, the warning remained clear. Do not enter. Do not ask why. The story is waiting for the next one.